ever feel like you're kind of on autopilot? Like maybe your choices aren't actually like your choices? Well, today we're going deep on this question that's been debated forever.
Right.
That connection between, you know, your body and your mind and whether we actually have free will or not.
Well, you've given us a lot to work with. We've got, you know, everything from the ancient philosophers to like modern neuroscience.
It really runs the gamut.
It's interesting, though, how these sources, even though they're from such different perspectives, they all are struggling with this one question, right? Are we truly free to make our own choices?
Yeah.
Or are our actions already predetermined?
It really is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean, we feel like we're making decisions all the time.
We do.
But what if it's all just an illusion?
Yeah.
So let's rewind all the way back to the OGs.
Okay.
Like the very first thinkers.
Yeah.
The ancient Greeks.
So the Greeks really were the ones who laid the groundwork?
Yeah. For all of this debate. You've got Plato, who believed in dualism.
Right.
That idea that the soul and the body are totally separate. And he actually used that very famous allegory of the cave, you know, that one,
right,
to show how we might just be seeing a very limited version of reality.
It's like we're all just seeing shadows on a wall.
Exactly.
Not like the real deal.
Not the real thing.
But then you have Aristotle,
Right,
who was a student of Plato, and he had a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
He believed in modernism.
Right.
So that idea that the body and soul are like inseparable.
So Aristotle thought that the soul was the essence that animates the body, which, and this is interesting, really had an influence on later scientific thought.
Oh, wow.
So right from the get-go, you've got these two very different views, and they kind of continue to shape the whole debate, even today.
It's like they set up the wrestling ring, you know?
For like the next 2,000 years of philosophical debate.
Exactly.
And speaking of like wrestling with these huge ideas, we can't forget Thomas Aquinas.
Right.
Who brought in this whole idea of like a natural human desire.
Yes.
To want to know God.
Right.
It's like this longing deep down to understand like our place in the universe.
Exactly. And Aquinas's work really is this great bridge to how we view the mind-body problem today.
Interesting.
And that brings us to Descartes, who is famous for that I think, therefore I am idea.
Descartes was also all about dualism.
Yeah.
But he kind of took it up a notch, you know?
Okay, yeah.
With this idea of interactionism. So it's the belief that the mind and body are separate.
Yeah.
But somehow they still interact.
And it does get a little strange here.
No?
Descartes thought this interaction like physically took place in the pineal gland.
Oh, okay.
Which is this tiny little structure in the brain.
So it's like the command center.
Right. But of course, you know, now we know that the pineal gland isn't quite what he imagined it to be.
It's amazing, though, how these early thinkers really tried to, like, pinpoint the physical spot of the mind.
Yeah.
But then you have thinkers like Julian Mettrie, who went in a totally different direction.
Right.
He compared humans to, like, complex machines.
Mettrie was, he was pretty outspoken. He said that the mind is nothing more than just a product of bodily processes.
Wow.
It was a very radical idea back then.
Yeah.
But it's a line of thinking that continues to this day. You included Dick Swab in your list, and he says that everything we are, our personalities, our beliefs, it all just comes down to our brains.
So if it's our brains that are, like, calling all the shots, does that mean free will is totally out the window?
Yeah.
Are we just, like, biological robots just responding to whatever stimuli come our way?
That is the million-dollar question.
But before we get too deep into that,
okay,
let's take a quick detour and look at how our bodies shape our actual experiences.
Okay, so we're going from the brain to the whole body now.
The whole body.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
You included some really interesting stuff about this thing called phenomenology.
Okay.
And it focuses on how we experience the world through our bodies. Thinkers like Husserl and Merleau-Ponty really emphasized that our bodies aren't just like objects.
Yeah.
They're the very foundation of how we actually perceive things.
So it's not just that we have bodies, it's that we experience everything through them.
Exactly.
Wow.
They actually distinguish between the what they call the lived body and the objective body.
So the lived body.
The lived body is how we like subjectively experience our body. So like the feelings, the sensations, the movements.
Okay. Whereas the objective body is the body, you know, as science sees it.
Right.
Just a bunch of organs and systems.
It's like the difference between, you know, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin versus understanding how solar radiation works, you know.
That is a fantastic analogy.
Thanks.
It really brings it home. Phenomenology is a good reminder that our subjective experience is just as important as any objective scientific view.
For sure.
We're not just passive observers.
Right.
You know, we actively engage with the world using our bodies.
Makes me think about Gestalt theory, which says we tend to see the world as like organized wholes rather than like separate parts. You know, like when you see a dog, you don't see, you know, a separate tail and legs and ears and a head.
Right.
You see a dag.
You see the whole dog.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's because our minds, they're constantly trying to make sense of all the patterns. Yeah.
And the relationships that we see around us.
Right, right.
And both phenomenology and Gestalt theory highlight that the mind is actively shaping how we experience things.
It's not just a one-way street of information coming in.
It's a two-way street.
Okay, so we've got dualism, we've got monism, and this idea that our bodies are like the foundation of experience. Right. So where do we go from here?
Well, your reading list just wouldn't be complete without a good dose of Arthur Schopenhauer.
Schopenhauer.
Yes.
Yeah, and his like famous will to live idea. I've always found that concept kind of unsettling, you know? It's like this relentless force that just pushes us forward whether we want it to or not.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It is a really powerful idea. He believed that the will is the driving force behind all of life.
It fuels our desires and it leads us on this constant chase for fulfillment. But here's the thing. Schopenhauer also believed that all this striving inevitably leads to suffering.
So we're all just puppets.
Yeah,
being like controlled by this unseen force.
Yeah.
That's kind of depressing.
Yeah, Schopenhauer, he wasn't exactly known for his cheery outlook on life. Yeah. He argued that even our intellect isn't really free. It's just another tool that the will uses. And this leads to a pretty provocative idea.
That's that.
Schopenhauer believed that even procreation is ultimately driven by this will to live.
So even falling in love and having kids, that's all just us being manipulated by this like primal urge.
By this primal urge.
That's a lot to like process.
It does challenge a lot of our assumptions about love and free will.
Big time.
But you know, that's what philosophy is for, right?
That's true. That's true.
To shake things up.
To shake things up.
And speaking of shaking things up, our next stop is Friedrich Nietzsche.
Oh, yeah.
The philosopher who very famously said, God is dead.
Yeah.
That's a statement that always gets people talking.
It really does.
Nietzsche was definitely a force to be reckoned with.
For sure.
He criticized traditional metaphysics really harshly.
Well.
He argued that it's searching for answers in a realm that doesn't even exist.
Wow.
He saw this kind of thinking as a form of nihilism.
Okay.
You know, devaluing this present moment in favor of some like made up ultimate reality.
So there's no real meaning like out there.
Right.
If God is dead, like he said.
Yeah.
How do we make sense of our lives then?
That's a great question.
Like where do we even find purpose?
And that's where Nietzsche's call for a revaluation of all values comes in.
Okay.
He believed that with the death of God, we're free to create our own values, to find meaning in a world without any, you know, preordained purpose.
Right.
It's a radical idea, but it's also super empowering.
It's like he's saying we're not bound by any rules or expectations.
Right.
Like we have the freedom.
We do.
And the responsibility to define our own meaning and purpose.
That's a great way to summarize it. And it's actually the perfect segue to the next section.
Okay.
Where we're going to delve into some 20th century science.
All right.
And we'll see what neuroscience can tell us about free will.
Okay. So we've gone from ancient Greece to 19th century Germany.
Right.
Now we're bringing in the brain scientists.
We are.
This is going to be good.
It is. So one of the most famous studies that you included is the Libet experiment. And it showed that brain activity that's related to a decision, it actually happens before we're even consciously aware of making the decision.
Hold on. You're saying that my brain is making choices before I even know about it?
Well, yeah.
That's kind of freaky.
Yeah, it is.
So does that mean that free will is like totally an illusion then?
Well, the Libet experiment, it definitely caused some problems for the whole free will debate. Yeah. Some people say it proves that our choices, our conscious choices are just like afterthoughts.
Okay.
But other people say, the results are a lot more complicated than that.
So it's not like a total slam dunk against free will.
Not necessarily. It raises a ton of questions, though, about, the role of consciousness in how we make decisions.
Okay.
But it is important to remember that the Libet experiment is just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay, so we can't just completely rule out free will?
No.
Just based on this one experiment?
Not at all.
So what else is there?
So you also included these thought experiments called Frankfurt cases.
Frankfurt cases.
Yeah. Okay. And they look at situations where someone's about to make a choice. Yeah. But there's this hidden mechanism that would actually intervene if they were about to choose the wrong thing.
So it's like there's a puppeteer.
Yeah, kind of.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
But the person making the choice has no idea.
They have no idea.
Yeah.
And the really crazy part is that Harry Frankfurt, who came up with these scenarios, he says that even in these cases, the person can still be morally responsible for their actions.
Wait, but how does that even make sense?
Yeah.
If they couldn't have chosen any differently,
right?
How can you blame them?
Well, Frankfurt, he goes deep into the idea of internal motivations.
Okay.
He argues that even if someone is being manipulated, if their choice really aligns with their own desires and values, then they're still accountable.
Okay, that's a pretty complicated idea.
Yeah.
So it's not just about whether you could have chosen something different, but whether that choice was really you.
Exactly. It gets into some tricky questions about the nature of responsibility and the limits of free will.
Yeah.
And this actually brings us to the big showdown in philosophy.
Let's hear it.
Hard determinism.
Okay.
Versus compatibilism.
All right, break it down for me. What's the difference?
Okay, so hard determinism basically says that free will is a complete illusion. It's like a chain reaction, every event is caused by the one before it, including our own choices.
Okay.
You included Rita Carter's work, and she argues from this perspective, saying that the illusion of free will is actually helpful for social cooperation.
So believing that we have free will, even if it's not real, helps us get along better.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It creates this feeling of accountability, and it motivates us to act in ways that benefit society.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then on the other side, you've got compatibilism.
Okay.
And it says that free will and determinism can actually exist together.
Oh.
Thinkers like Daniel Dennett and John Gray, they argue that even if our choices are influenced by things, beyond our control, we still have some degree of agency.
Okay.
We can still be held responsible for what we do.
So it's not an either kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's a middle ground.
There's a middle,
where we can acknowledge, the influence of our genetics and our environment, but we can also still hold ourselves accountable for the choices that we make.
Exactly. That's the compatibilist view.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that human agency is complicated.
Yeah.
We're shaped by our biology, our experiences.
Oh, sure.
But we also have the ability to reflect, deliberate and make conscious choices.
Okay, so we've explored all these different angles on free will.
Right.
But where does that leave us in the real world?
Yeah.
Like, what does this mean for how we think about like morality and the law?
That's the question. You know, if we don't have full control over our own actions, does that change how we punish criminals?
Yeah, for sure. Or reward good behavior. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. It really does raise all these like moral and legal dilemmas.
Yeah.
So what do the sources have to say about this?
Well, you included some really insightful perspectives on this. Peter Strawson, for example, argues that our natural emotional reactions to each other, what he calls reactive attitudes, are actually the basis of moral responsibility.
So like reactive attitudes.
Yeah.
So like when I feel grateful.
Yeah.
When someone, you know, does something nice for me.
Right.
Or angry if someone, you know, wrongs me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Strawson says that these gut reactions are so fundamental to how we interact socially that we can't just ignore them.
Right.
Even if we accept the idea that that free will is an illusion. Okay. We can't just stop holding each other accountable, even if, you know, philosophically we question, you know, the whole basis for that.
So even if it turns out that we're all just puppets on strings,
like puppets dancing,
we still react as if we're like the ones calling the shots.
We do. Yeah.
It's like we're like hardwired for morality.
That's scary.
Even if it's like based on an illusion.
That's a really fascinating paradox.
Yeah.
But then you have people like Jürgen Hamer, who's a legal scholar who take a totally different approach.
Okay.
He argues against traditional punishment, saying that criminals are just products of their genes and their environment.
Okay.
If their choices are ultimately like determined by things outside of their control, he thinks it's just not fair to punish them.
So he's basically saying we should like completely rethink our justice system.
Yeah.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is a radical idea.
Yeah.
He suggests that instead of focusing on retribution, you know, an eye for an eye, we should focus on rehabilitation and harm reduction. Okay. If we understand that criminal behavior often comes from, you know, this complex interplay of biological and social factors, then we can focus on like addressing the root causes instead of just, you know, punishing individuals for actions that they may have been like predisposed to.
So instead of an eye for an eye, it's more about understanding like the circumstances that led to the crime.
Exactly.
And trying to prevent, you know, further harm.
Exactly. And it really highlights how this whole debate about free will isn't just some abstract philosophical thing. You know, it has like very real implications for how we deal with some of the biggest issues in society.
It's a good reminder that philosophy can be like actually practical, even when it's like dealing with these really, really big, like mind-blowing ideas.
Mind-blowing questions.
So we've got Strawson saying we should hold people accountable, like based on our like gut reactions, and Hammer saying we shouldn't punish people at all.
Right.
Are there like other perspectives out there?
Well, you also included Sam Harris, who takes a very neuroscience-based approach.
Okay.
He says that we should use our growing understanding of the brain to make our legal system better.
Okay.
He even thinks we could like develop ways to actually correct criminal behavior.
So it's like if we can figure out what parts of the brain are involved in you know, violence and aggression and stuff, maybe we can like find a way to intervene and change those patterns.
That's the idea.
Wow.
And Harris's view is definitely controversial.
Right.
But it does raise some really important questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Could we actually stop crime before it even happens?
Right.
By like dealing with the underlying neural causes?
That's a big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah.
Or could we rehabilitate offenders more effectively by targeting, you know, very specific brain regions?
Yeah.
These are these are complicated issues that we're really just starting to think about.
It's like the lines are getting blurred,
They are.
Between philosophy and neuroscience and law.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're like entering this whole new era of how we understand human behavior and responsibility.
Absolutely.
And this brings us to another fascinating case study that you included. Pamela Reynolds Lowry.
Right.
She was this American singer and songwriter who had this really incredible near-death experience during surgery for a brain aneurysm.
She did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember reading about her.
Yeah.
She was like clinically dead for a whole hour.
An hour.
And afterwards, she said that she could like see her own operation like from outside her body.
It's a remarkable story, and it's been talked about a lot in the context of near-death experiences and the possibility that that consciousness can exist even when the brain isn't working.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the doctors and nurses, like they all confirmed that her descriptions of what happened during the surgery were like totally accurate.
They were.
Even though she was like technically dead at the time.
It's really amazing. And while we obviously can't like prove or disprove what she experienced, it does make us think about some really, really big questions.
For sure.
About consciousness, the mind-body connection and the limits of what we know scientifically.
It's like if consciousness can exist outside of the brain, does that mean like there's something more to us than just like our physical bodies?
Yeah.
Like, does it mean that that maybe some part of us like survives even after death?
These are questions that philosophers and theologians have been thinking about for thousands of years.
Right.
And they're not easy to answer.
No, they're not.
But cases like Pamela Reynolds Lowry's do give us a glimpse, into the mysteries of consciousness.
For sure.
And the possibility that human experience can go beyond what we currently understand.
It's both fascinating and kind of spooky,
It is.
Like it's like we're just barely scratching the surface of what it means to be human, of how like our bodies and our minds in the universe are all connected.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's not about like having all the answers, it's about embracing the mystery, the wonder, and just continually exploring what it means to exist in this world that's so complex.
For sure.
And always changing.
Yeah.
So we've gone from ancient philosophy to modern neuroscience, from Plato to Nietzsche to Schopenhauer. We even talked about near-death experiences and the mysteries of consciousness.
Yeah.
It's been an incredible journey.
It really has.
It has been a real privilege to dive into these sources with you.
I agree.
It's amazing how they all kind of speak to this very human desire to find meaning and understanding, to figure things out.
And to our listener out there,
yeah,
I hope this deep dive has given you like a new appreciation for how complicated like human experience really is.
It is.
For how our minds and our bodies are like intertwined and for the ongoing mystery of consciousness itself.
That was beautifully said. And remember, listener, this is really just the beginning of your exploration.
Yeah.
There are so many so many paths to follow, so many questions to ask, so many insights to uncover.
But
we encourage you to keep digging into the ideas that sparked your interest and to embrace, the wonder of the unknown.
Yeah, that's a good place to leave it.
I think so.
Okay. So we've explored like all these heavy hitters in philosophy.
Yeah.
Plato, Nietzsche, all the like neuroscience of choice and stuff. What else have you got for us in this like philosophical grab bag?
Well, you included some really interesting material about the Stoics.
Oh yeah.
Or this school of philosophy that started in ancient Greece.
Right.
And they emphasized living in accordance with nature.
Okay.
And accepting the things that are beyond our control.
So they were all about like finding inner peace
Yeah.
and being tranquil in the middle of all the chaos of life.
That's the essence of Stoicism.
Yeah.
They believed that we don't have control over what happens, outside of us.
Yeah.
But we do have control over our own thoughts and reactions.
Wow.
They placed a lot of value on virtue, reason, and living in harmony with like the natural order of the universe.
And I remember that they had some pretty interesting ideas about fate.
Yeah.
It's like everything is already decided, so there's no point in like fighting it.
Exactly.
You just got to accept what is and find peace, right now.
You've got that was a core principle of Stoicism.
Yeah.
Seneca, who was one of their most important figures, argued that that resisting fate is pointless.
Okay.
He compared it to like swimming upstream against like a really strong current.
Right.
You're just going to tire yourself out and get nowhere.
So it's more about like surrendering to what is than trying to like force things to be different.
It's about letting go of that need to control everything. And the Stoics, they believed that that this acceptance, this surrender,
that's what actually leads to true freedom.
It's not about controlling what's happening outside of you. It's about like mastering what's going on the inside.
Yes, our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions.
That's a really powerful idea.
It is.
It's like even if we can't like control what happens to us, we can still choose how we respond.
Yes.
We might not be able to stop the waves.
Right.
But we can learn to surf.
I love that.
Thanks.
That is such a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And this idea that we can choose our response.
Yeah.
That we can cultivate inner strength and resilience that resonates with so many people even today,
Right.
Whether or not they consider themselves Stoics.
Right.
It's like it's a timeless piece of wisdom that can help us with the challenges
and the uncertainties that are just a part of life.
Makes me think of that saying.
Yeah.
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change.
Yes.
The courage to change the things I can.
Right.
And the wisdom to know the difference.
That is a perfect a perfect way to sum up the Stoic approach to life.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's interesting how we talk about fate.
Yeah.
As if it's like this outside force, that's controlling our lives.
Yeah.
You even included that that excerpt about the domestication of fate.
Yeah.
It explored how like that concept has changed over time.
It is interesting how we like to give fate some kind of like agency or intention, like it's consciously in control.
Yeah.
Think about the ancient Greeks. They believed in the three fates, these goddesses that literally like spun and measured and cut the threads of people's lives.
Like a cosmic tapestry,
Yes.
with our destinies like woven right into the fabric of everything.
Exactly.
But I feel like as we've understood more about the world, that idea of fate, it's become more complicated.
It has.
Hasn't it?
Yeah, it's less about a destiny that's already set in stone.
Right.
It's more about acknowledging that there are just certain forces at play, certain events that we just can't control.
So it's not about some like grand plan or anything.
Yeah.
It's more about recognizing that like chance and circumstance, they play a role.
They do.
In how our lives turn out.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think there's something that's both liberating and humbling about
for sure.
It frees us from that burden of trying to like control every little thing, and it encourages us to focus on what we can influence, which is our own actions, choices.
It's like we can't always choose the music that life plays for us, but we can choose like how we dance to it.
I love that.
Thanks.
And I think it speaks to this bigger theme that we see in all of these sources. This tension between our desire for certainty and the fact that life is inherently uncertain.
Yeah, we want to believe
We do.
that there's a reason for everything, that
Yes.
that things happen for a purpose, but
Mhm.
then we're faced with, suffering and loss and
Right.
just how unpredictable the
Yeah.
world is.
It is.
It's like we're constantly trying to find our footing on
Right.
like shifting sand.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And that tension can be, right,
Really, really unsettling.
for sure.
It can make us question everything we thought we knew, everything we believed in.
Right.
But it can also be something that leads to like growth and creativity and resilience.
Okay.
It's often in those moments when we're like wrestling with uncertainty that we discover our own strength, our own resourcefulness.
So instead of being like paralyzed by doubt,
Right.
we can learn to like see the unknown
Yeah.
as a place where like
Right.
anything is possible.
Exactly.
It's like, maybe the question mark is more interesting than the period.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And this brings us back to that really important idea from phenomenology about how important our lived experience is. How we see the world, how we interact with it through our bodies. We were talking before about the difference between the lived body and the objective body. It's like recognizing that we're not just brains floating around. We're feeling, sensing, experiencing beings.
We are, and this embodiment it really shapes our whole understanding of the world, including these big questions about free will and determinism.
Right.
If our choices are being influenced by like this mix of biological stuff, environmental stuff, and our experiences, what does that mean for the idea of like conscious control? Is free will really just an illusion?
Right.
Or do we just need to like understand freedom in a different way?
Yeah, those are questions that don't have easy answers.
They don't.
But I think just the act of asking these questions, of struggling with all this complexity, that's what makes this whole like exploration so enriching.
I completely agree. It's not about, finding the right answers. It's about opening our minds, challenging what we think we know, and really deepening our understanding of ourselves and the world.
So we've really come full circle from ancient philosophy to modern neuroscience, from Plato to Nietzsche to Schopenhauer, even near-death experiences. And the mysteries of consciousness. What an incredible journey.
It has been.
It really has.
It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, I agree.
To dive into these sources with you. It's amazing how they all tap into this very human search for meaning and understanding to make sense of it all.
And for our listener, I hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the complexity of like what it means to be human.
It is complex.
For how our minds and bodies are like so connected. And for the ongoing like mystery of consciousness.
The mystery of consciousness. And listener, remember, this is really just the start of your journey. There are so many paths to explore, so many questions to ask, so much to learn and discover.
For sure.
We hope you keep digging into the ideas that really sparked your curiosity, and that you embrace the wonder of the unknown.
That's a great place to end it, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.